Hey folks, Nev here with One Deal Away and wanted to come in and share with you some of the things that I have been able to scour throughout internet by watching channels all over the world of what's going on and what's happening. And I've already done a video of things that are being censored throughout social media, but there are censorships happening all over the place, including the mainstream media. If you look around on any channel whatsoever and watch it, you will notice that the fear is one of the things that is being shared and pushed on everybody. And any sort of information that comes out that is different, that wants to empower people, that wants to share the good stuff, that wants to raise the awareness and get us all to stop fearing and stop acting, to start living our life the way that we are meant to live, which is fearless, is what's being censored, pushed aside, and ostracized. So I ended up watching some of the channels and some of the videos from different countries and realizing that every country is approaching coronavirus in very similar ways. The acts of how we do it is a little bit different, but overall we use a handful of proven psychological methodologies that will stop us in our tracks and petrify us so that we can go along with what they want us to do. One of those things is, of course, pushing coronavirus. Look, we've had pandemics all over the place. People are posting and sharing that there's all kinds of stuff happening, and I don't want to minimize in any way, shape, or form of what's going on with the virus or how serious it is. I am not a medical professional. I am not a media guru. I don't know all of the stuff that's going on. Yes, I do believe that the virus is real. Yes, I believe that there's people that are being sick. Yes, I believe the hospitals are needed. Yes, I believe that people are dying. But look, that being the only methodology that is being pushed without any information that is realistic or what is being done is simply not okay. That's the sort of view that I have. I don't know how you feel about it. You might have a very different view than I do. But that's kind of where I stand. So what do? They keep pushing the number of people that are sick, the number of people that have died, but the number of people that have recovered, or number of people that we didn't test, or the number of people that have very mild symptoms and any of those things, none of that is being talked about. And my question is why? You know, if you're going to push an information, let's push all of the information so people can get a sort of global picture of the whole thing, as opposed to just focusing everybody on just one thing. Because when you push down the throats of everybody of how many people are getting sick and how many people are dying and how many people are suffering, how many people are, three people went to play poker, now all of them are dead, right? And so what is that mentality? Because I'm sure that there have been other groups of three people that went to play poker that all of them are fine, but we don't push that methodology out there. And my question is why? And so what I have come up to conclude is that there's some sort of big change that wants to come our way, and there's some changes that I think most of us are already aware of what is going on, of what is being pushed. And of course, mass vaccinations, which some of the wealthiest people are going to become even wealthier, mass targeting people and tracking them, right, through the chips, or I've heard that there's many countries that are now putting chips into people's arms and stuff as a easier way to access things, including spend money. And part of the problem why so many people are spending money now versus in the past is because of the ease of spending money. The way to make money, more or less, for vast majority of people has stayed the same. But the way to spend it is much easier today than it was ever before. Why? Well, if you were to go to a grocery store and had to spend like $300, you would have to sit there and count those fives and tens and twenties or maybe even hundreds, and you kind of see this massive thing kind of leaving you, right? But when you just have to go in and swipe or place your phone or wave your hand or just walk out, without having to do anything. The transaction happens, you don't even notice it happening. That is part of the problem. And of course, that's one of the psychologies that many people are pushing now through online sales and online things of, like, oh, it's just a click the button. Well, click the button is really easy, and but it costs us money at the end. You don't see the transaction that happens on the back end, but it does happen until at some point you look at your balance account, right, this bank account statement, and see, whoo, boy, I spent a lot of money this year, right, or this month or this week or however. And many people don't even look at that stuff, so that's a problem all on its own. So what else are people using? Well, they are telling everybody to stay away from everybody. So now we're petrified of a human being. When we see somebody, half a mile away, we start crossing the street and walking away, because the methodology is that everybody is sick and you have to avoid everybody. And again, that's totally possible, but people are genuinely petrified to see another human being. And I think that that has a huge psychological impact that is going to divide us in the future as opposed to unite us. They call it social distancing for a reason. They want us to be socially distant. We've already been socially distant, right? In reality, it should be physical distancing, perhaps. If you even subscribe to that component. But no, they call it social distancing so that we can completely cut off from everybody, and the only thing that we are left to do is glue into the mass media that is being owned by some of the wealthiest individuals and corporations, right, through corporations, let's be honest, that control the entire thing. Then we just sort of listen one source of media that is keeping us fed this information that is absolutely petrifying, and now you can't even go and get conflicting information so that you can form your own opinion, or through the preponderance of social distancing promotion, now you're not even socializing with people, so you can't even exchange the ideas. So now you sit there and you sort of mull things over in your head over and over and over again. And it's kind of like, if you've ever had a zit on your face, and it's just a small zit, it's there, it happened, whatever, right? But then you stare at it and you look at it more and you focus, and all of a sudden that zit went from like one tiny little pimple on your face, which is what the vast majority of people will see, to this like huge thing where you're like, I can't go outside. Like I got a call from work, I got a call from school. I'm not going anywhere because this thing is like so huge, so out there, so embarrassing. I'm not doing it. And then the final piece that is also happening is that there's this militarization, police enforcement that is happening throughout the globe. And the folks that are police officers, that are military personnel, I do believe that vast majority of them are incredibly good and kind people. But the methodology that is being used to train and to teach military personnel and armies around the world is that you follow orders. You don't question anything. You do not talk back. You just say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and you go. You execute. That is how some of these wars and bombings and all of these different things are being pushed in, because you have one or two people in the power that make a decision and then is being pushed towards these executioners, so to call it. And I don't mean executioner like, although that sometimes happens. I mean people who execute on that order, sort of the worker bees, right? And so that's kind of where we see some of the stuff that is happening right now that, to me is also highly problematic and, a really big challenge and an issue. So here we are, it's 2020, we're supposed to be the freest people ever, and yet we're experiencing something that in history books we have been taught and learned about, where, during the Nazi Germany, during the Holocaust, you had Jews, that they had like numbers printed on their arms that would sort of tag them. Now we don't do that. Now we're getting a little bit smarter. And when I say we, I really mean like the autocratic leadership that is using big media propaganda to get us all to actually ask for it. Like, that's the crazy piece. Whereas before it was sort of pushed on us, now we're asking for it. We're asking for the tag to go in. We're asking for the QR codes to be tattooed on our arms so that we can wave our hand and get the candy bar, and that we can, get the vaccine with the code put in so that they can track us. We're asking for all of those things. We're asking for the 5G, and all of that stuff is coming. And when I say we're asking for 5G, some of you might say, I don't agree with you. I'm not asking for it. I'm completely against it. Well, I don't know if you have been paying attention, but the internet is starting to play some tricks. And one of the arguments is that maybe more of us are using it more, which I could subscribe to that argument. But it also wouldn't surprise me at all if the service is being slowed down and manipulated in such a way where we start asking for 5G to be delivered to us so that we can stay connected in some way, shape, or form. We're now being told, way back when we were told here in the United States at least that, wearing a face mask was like, no. Now, when you can't get a single mask out there, we're all being told, wear the mask and make it on your own and use a bandana, or like take a t-shirt and like sew it. And so now everybody's kind of going in to follow it, and everybody's blindly going into it. And so now, even when you try to rebel and say, you know what, like, I'm not going to wear a mask, like, this is quite silly, because if it didn't work, 2 months ago, how is it magically working today? And again, I'm not a medical professional, and maybe I'm a complete idiot and just don't understand it. And that's fine. But those are some of the questions that I am asking. And so now, instead of spending more time to try to educate folks to say, you know what, we were stupid to call it, or we were greedy and we wanted masks for this, but now we want it for that, whatever the case is, none of that is being talked about. The agenda is just sort of flipped, and the new propaganda is being pushed forward without any arguments, without any contrarian opinions or views or any of that stuff. And that's happening from health, that is happening about their money, that is happening with like everything around it. And, it's very much of like, just how do you get masses to go into the same direction? And Orwellian classic of 1984 or 1894 or whatever, I mix numbers, is sort of playing out, where you're hearing the same message over and over and over again. And you know what? That's exactly what we used in Nazi Germany. That was exactly what was used in all of the different ways where people at the top were pushing their own agenda and having people buy in. And then everybody who spoke against it, they were being censored, shut down, threatened, executed, excommunicated, and elsewhere. So now what is happening that I'm noticing here in the United States, at least in Rhode Island, is that, if you don't wear a mask, you get a fine of $500. And it's not even about wearing a mask. In some of the cities, it's not even about wearing a mask inside a store or inside where there's a public. But even if you go outside for a walk where there's nobody on the street, you have to wear the mask. There's actually cities where even if you go into your front porch, into your front lawn, if a peace officer was to see you, they can issue you a ticket for $500. So it's one of those things that is just, if you can't scare them, then find them, because there's going to be a pressure valve, and we all respond in a different regard. So if people are not just merely scared, then they're going to follow it because they don't want to be fined. And if they don't want to be fined, then they're going to be jailed, which is what's happening in some of the other countries around the world, where people, if they're not following things, and again, the person that is not following whatever the order is always portrayed in a complete disgrace of the whole thing. There's not enough story to say, there was this one person that sat on the front porch of their own house, didn't interact with anybody, there was nobody there, and just didn't wear the mask. That's not how the story is being told. It's just that there is a person that is disobeying and is being rude and so on. So the stories are being spun in the favor of the agenda. Then what is also happening is that there are martial laws everywhere. I just spoke with my family, so now the martial law, they used to have it where you just couldn't go between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. Then it was 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. Then it was 3 p.m. to 5 a.m. Now it became a weekend from like 5 p.m. on a Friday to like 5 a.m. or 3 p.m. on a Friday to like 5 a.m. on a Monday. Now what I hear is for this weekend, and it's Easter for Christian Orthodox communities around the world this weekend, they cannot go outside between Friday and Tuesday. Right? And so every time I feel like I tune in or I talk to my friends and family, that closure is expanding. And one of the things that, regardless of what medical advice you follow, what diet you subscribe to, what your beliefs are, just about everybody in the world agrees that going outside is good for you, moving your body is good for you, going for a walk, going for a run, exercising, having some sunshine and some fresh air is what is really good for us, and that's what helps build immune system. Those are the things that are being stripped away from billions of people consistently. And that's sort of the fear that it's, instead of making people stronger, we're making people weaker. Instead of building the immune system, building good health, building all of the stuff, we're making people weaker and sicker. And then you have the food and the inflation that is happening there, that I've already done one of the videos where I talked about that sort of inflationary deflation, where some of the things that don't really matter, technically speaking, for life, are going down in price, but things that really matter, like food, for example, are going up in the price. I was just in a store a few days ago, and the dozen eggs that I used to buy that was $3.99 for a dozen is $6.49 this week. That was in a couple of weeks that it just almost doubled in price. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. And so that's kind of what we're experiencing right now, so that folks are starting to switch to less healthy options just so that they can survive. Now, we've also received this $1,200 stimulus checks that some people are reporting they have received it, some haven't. There have been some challenges and issues. I'm not going to get into that right now, of kind of how to deal with it and so on. But one of the things that also happened when this was rolling out, there was a conference, a webinar for the bank owners, for the presidents of the banks throughout the United States, where he was being guided by this sort of overseeing chair committee, where this lady, and I'm sure you can look it up online if you really want to get into the research and find out, but where this lady is basically going in and coaching the presidents of the banks that because it's a government issued money, that the moment it hits the bank accounts, that if the owner of that bank account has any money that they owe in back pay or whatever, right, like maybe credit cards and so on, that the bank has a legal right to actually take that money, cover the debt. The second thing that is also happening is that they're pushing the propaganda to keep the money in the banks, right? You've seen the videos from FDIC promising how it's all guaranteed, how it's all insured, how since 1933 not a single person in an insured bank ever lost a single penny, blah, 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 right? It's a propaganda. But now the banks actually have a legal right to use that money to then lend more, and the lending rules have been super explored and expanded, where the reserves, even the small reserves that they used to have, are out the window now. There's no reporting. There's none of anything. So, they are able to then go in. This money is being pushed as that it's our money, but vast majority of people are leaving it in the bank. Some might be using it to pay the bills. Some might be investing it. Some might be spending it on, the deflated items that they may or may not need. But there's a lot of people that are going to keep their money in the bank, and the banks are actually using that for their own liquidity. And the laws have been passed very similar to the laws that were explored and executed upon in Cyprus, where the banks were bailed in. What that basically meant is the bank would go on a holiday. They would close the bank, you couldn't access it, and they would take the money from all of the people who have deposited it and then reopen it, and then the people were basically told that, well, you don't have money here, but you got an equity in this particular bank, and no, you can't sell it. That's legal repossession of funds that now has been rolled into just about every bank around the world. And, in all honesty, it's being set up as what I'd like to call the greatest cash heist, sorry. Well, it's a height of economy, but it's heist from the regular people. So here we are. We are stuck in homes trying to find funny videos. Some of us are incredibly petrified, and we are taking out our frustrations on anyone and everyone with every small thing that sometimes was meaningless and useless now sets us off, where we just go off and we become a person we are typically would have been afraid or ashamed to be, but yet that's what's going on right now. So one of the things that I would say what we can do is, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling kind of like, I just need to let these things go, like, there are plenty of psychotherapists and counselors and so on that are doing stuff online over the phones. So I do highly encourage folks to actually use that. I'm not one of them, so don't be call me. I can't help you, but use those services out there to help you. Stop watching the news and the propaganda and buying into this stuff, and like, just disconnect from it. Look for other things, look for opportunities, look for second and third and fourth opinions and different varieties of things that are still available through some of the alternative channels where people are talking about different things, where they can just get your mind off of on something else. Start thinking critically for yourself and on your own, and start executing your own free thinking. I know that the schools have all failed us, or vast majority, where they don't teach us free thinking, right? They give you one set of dogma, and if you don't follow it, you are publicly shamed in that classroom. You are kicked out or put in a corner, typically at the laughter of your classmates. That's how at least I was raised, and that's how I was sort of put through the school. But don't let those teenage years and fears put you aside. Start thinking for yourself. Start formulating your own opinions. Start speaking out. Start standing up for your own human basic rights, and that is to have your own opinion, to have your own thoughts, to be able to go outside, to be able to go for a walk. I'm not saying, nor am I calling for anarchism or rising or any of that stuff. But I'm saying, like, we can peacefully protest of what's going on and saying, you know what, I'm not going to buy into your little game. I'm not going to play by it. I am going to go out and live my happy life. I'm going to find what's good in the world. I'm going to talk about what's nice about things. I'm going to go and, send the love to people around me. And, I'm not going to go in and fly off the handle because I'm allowing for people to control me through fear, because that is the best way to control the masses, especially when you force them to disconnect. And this doesn't mean that I am right. This just means it's my opinion. You can agree with it, you can disagree with it. It is perfectly fine. And I love that about us as a humanity, that we can have different opinions. What I don't like is that when it's only one opinion that is being pushed, and we're being told that that opinion is right and everything else is wrong. That's not freedom. That's not freedom of speech. That's not freedom of media. That is propaganda, and I don't want that for you, for me. So start thinking for yourself. Step out of the zone, and let's start looking at different ways to look at the stuff. I hope this is helpful. I hope you have enjoyed it. Do subscribe to the channel. And, in the upcoming videos, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the economy, what's happening, kind of where we are. I've done some of the videos before, and I want to update you of what has happened since we talked, which has only been a few days or a few weeks, depending on which video you have watched. So make sure you stay tuned. And until next time, stay forever money blessed. And do remember, you are only one deal away.